Hi everyone! So today we are talking about my mythology books. Not all of them, but these are just a select few from my collection that I wanted to talk about today. These books may be world mythology or mythology of various cultures or religions. This is not specific. This is not Greek mythology or Roman mythology. It's just mythology books I thought were really good to mention. So first off, we have Myths from Mesopotamia. In school, when I was really, really little, we were taught that Mesopotamia is like the start of the universe. Like, this is where everything started. So obviously I had to include it because it has stories about the creation, the flood, Gilgamesh, and more. I had to include it, and I think it's so cool how so many mythologies, religions, whatever you want to call it, they have a similar story, or they have similar aspects of their story. Like, for example, a flood, or how the world began. It's just so cool to me. Next up, we have Mythology 101, From Gods and Goddesses to Monsters and Mortals, Your Guide to Ancient Mythology. This book is a crash course on Greek and Roman myths, and it is the first mythology book I ever purchased. I think I bought this like 5 years ago, like a long time ago, okay? This is my first mythology book, and it did not scratch the itch of wanting to know more about mythology. This book really is simply a starting point for Greek and Roman religion, Greek and Roman mythology. It doesn't fulfill the need. Like, it's such a good book if you're looking for a crash course. Like, that's literally what it says, crash course, and I believe it because it's like in-depth, but not in-depth enough. Like, it's enough information to put into an essay, but it's not enough information to teach you the full story. So get this book if you want to, like, learn, like, a nice introduction to it, and then you could decide if you want to actually get more mythology books. Next up, I have the Encyclopedia of Mythology, Norse, Classical, and Celtic. This book is pretty good. I mean, it's not the most in-depth thing I've ever read. However, it is well illustrated and is very interesting. I really look for books these days that are focused on Greek and Roman mythology, so this just wasn't in-depth enough for me because I'm so specific anymore that, like, I don't need a book that's regarding multiple mythologies. I just need a book that's about one so I could get the full story, because a lot of books, they can't include all the info, so they cut pages out, and I hate that. So this book doesn't include everything, but again, it's a really good starting point for people who are interested in mythology. However, the one book that I have to say that discusses multiple mythologies and yet is still jam-packed with info is the mythology book, Big Ideas Simply Explained. This book dives into ancient Greece, ancient Rome, Northern Europe, Asia, the Americas, ancient Egypt and Africa, Oceania. Like, it just discusses, like, every part of the world and somehow manages to fit so much info in it with being illustrated and just so much info. I've said it before how I'm looking for, like, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, but this book, even though it's focused on multiple mythologies, it is still so detailed. And if you were to get any book out of all the ones I'm talking about today, get this one actually, because this one is so good. Like, you're gonna be entertained by the illustrations, and on top of that, you get to learn new information. This book also doesn't censor a lot of information, I'm pretty sure. And by censor, I mean a lot of books will censor stuff to make it kid-friendly. However, this book doesn't really censor a lot, so I don't think they censored anything, actually, so you'll be able to read the stories in full detail without having things deleted, which is so important to me because I hate buying books and seeing that they censored things or told the story wrong. Next up, I have Myths and Legends, Classical, Greek, Celtic, Norse, Chinese, African, Native American, and more. Creation myths, quests, magic, and gods, the eternal struggle between good and evil, just classic tales from around the world. It is a really, really good book. It's not my favorite because I love illustrations and mythology books. However, this is written in a way that I really, really appreciate. And I feel like it's a really good book to grab if you want to read mythology stories, because this book kind of dives into each story, and by that I mean, like, for example, it's written kind of like a novel. Like on page 442, she said, "That ship, I have learned enough to bring it to shore." Like it's a conversation that characters are having, if that makes any sense. Like, it's like a storybook, I guess, which I'm not really a fan of storybooks, but this is just really cool to me because it just feels so, I guess, authentic. I'm also pretty sure nearly every Barnes & Noble carries this exact book, so if you walk into it today, you could probably pick this book up while you're there. Myths and Legends, an illustrated guide to their origins and meanings. This book I got, I believe, alongside the mythology book. Just like the mythology book, it's very, very illustrated, has lots of information in it. I don't believe anything was censored. It's just a really, really good book, and it discusses like mythology from different places in the world, and it does a really good job at it. It's not a storybook. Like, this is information. I'd say every book I've showed so far is information, besides the Myths and Legends book. I would say Myths from Mesopotamia is also kind of a storybook, so keep this in mind. I know someone's gonna comment and be like, "We get it," but I have to say this because a lot of people don't like storybooks. A lot of people like books that get straight to the point and are like, "This is what happened. Here's an illustration," you know? So if you want to read a storybook, then get Myths and Legends, but if you are into factoids of information, you would get Mythology 101 or Myths and Legends from DK, or the mythology book from DK, obviously. And next up I have the Illustrated Encyclopedia of World Mythology, a comprehensive A to Z of the myths and legends of ancient Greece, Rome, Egypt, Persia, India, China, and the Norse and Celtic lands. My local Barnes & Noble had a Black Friday event. You know for a fact I went to that, and I got this book literally for so cheap, and I was so happy about it, because I really, like, books are so expensive. They are so expensive. So the fact that a lot of mythology books go on sale to make them affordable is really, I really appreciate that. And I was able to get this book, and I really love it because it's not only illustrated, but it also discusses just about any information that you'd want from mythology, because it's, you know, from all around the world. And it is a really good book. Like, personally, I would much be rather reading one of my Greek mythology books. However, the world mythology books are so important for people who want to know all of the world mythology or are just getting started in mythology, because, like, there's a lot to learn. So obviously, I don't have the space in my brain for world mythology, but I do have the space for, like, Greek mythology. However, I still purchase world mythology books because they're just really interesting, and sometimes I do want to, like, flip through them and be like, hey, what does this culture believe in? So yeah, I guess that is pretty much it. However, I do have something to say. So, in one of my last videos, I mentioned how I think it's really cool how a lot of authors and writers, video game makers, they use books, they use mythology as a way to find inspiration, and I truly do believe that. I think reading mythology could be a really good benefit for you if you are a writer, because it's a really nice way to get information and ideas. A lot of books and stories, games, movies that I like, they based their lore in mythologies of some sort. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, that's why it's so good, because it's literally based in something magical, and I love that type of stuff. So some people like to sew as their passion, other people play an instrument. I just read mythology books, and it makes me really happy. It really inspires me. It gets me thinking, because a lot of mythology is intertwined with other mythologies. It's just really cool to see how things are similar to each other, or how different cultures talk about it, or how mythologies evolved over time. And even if you're not into writing, learning mythology is just so cool, and it really could become a passion. Like, I love learning about mythology, but I also love learning about witchcraft and druidry and spiritualities, stuff like this. It's just really cool to learn. And although you might not ever be a witch, it's still fun to read about. Even though you might not ever be a druid, it's still really cool to learn about them. Even though I might not ever be a Greek god, I could still learn about it and have a lot of fun. There is literally no harm in reading more often. I love reading, I love books, and growing up, I hated books because I never read stuff I cared about. But since I've gotten a hold of mythology books, I love them. I'm hyper fixated on them. They're amazing. I hope you really liked the video, and if you would like more book recommendations, then obviously check my other videos I have made. And of course, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I am making more videos too. I'm just really focused on making book recommendations lately. But if you are interested in supporting the channel, then please head over to the subscribe button. And if you are even more interested in supporting the channel, then check out my PayPal, Cash App, and Amazon wishlist. That's it. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!